Hey everyone, and welcome. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going on a journey, an incredible journey, inside ourselves.
That's right. We're exploring the fascinating world of transportation systems, those intricate networks that keep us and plants alive and thriving.
Exactly. It's something we often take for granted. But without these systems, well, there wouldn't be any us to take them for granted.
It's true. These systems are the unsung heroes of life, working tirelessly behind the scenes.
So to kick things off, how about we start with something we all experience? Cuts. What happens inside our bodies when we get a cut? Why does the bleeding eventually stop?
Okay, well, first we see blood, right? But what is it really? It's obviously more than just that red liquid.
Yeah, good point. What is blood? What makes it so special?
Well, blood is actually this complex fluid. It's like a bustling city with different components working together to keep everything running smoothly. It's our personal delivery network, transporting all sorts of vital substances throughout our bodies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. I'm picturing like tiny delivery trucks zooming through a network of rails. So what are these vital substances? Who were the drivers in this intricate system?
Well, the roads, that's a great analogy. The roads are our blood vessels, and the drivers are the various components of blood. So first you have plasma. That's the liquid part of blood. It's like the streets themselves. And it carries things like nutrients, hormones, and waste products.
So plasma is like the infrastructure,
Yeah.
the foundation of the whole system. Makes sense. But what about the delivery trucks? What are they carrying?
Those are the blood cells. And we've got a few different types: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Each has a very specific job.
Okay, I'm ready to break down the types. So red blood cells first, what do they do?
Red blood cells, those are the oxygen carriers. They're packed with this protein called hemoglobin.
Ah, hemoglobin. So those are the tiny delivery trucks carrying precious oxygen to every corner of our bodies. Incredible. What about the other vehicles in this system?
Okay, so next up, white blood cells. Think of these as the body's security force. They're like the soldiers patrolling for and fighting off infections.
Ah, so they're our immune system's frontline defense. Pretty crucial job.
Absolutely crucial. And last but not least, we have platelets. They're the first responders to any injury. They rush to the scene of a cut and form a clot, stopping the bleeding.
Like paramedics
Yeah.
patching us up. That's incredible. It's like our body has its own built-in repair crew.
Exactly. And each component plays a crucial role in keeping our bodies functioning properly. But to understand how blood actually reaches every nook and cranny of our body, we need to talk about the pathways it travels. Blood vessels.
Right, those roads we were talking about earlier. We've all heard of arteries and veins, but what's the difference between them?
Okay, so think of it this way. Arteries are like highways carrying oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to the rest of the body. They have thick, muscular walls, to withstand the high pressure of blood being pumped from the heart.
Gotcha. Arteries are the express routes delivering that vital oxygen. Okay, so then what about veins?
Veins are like the return routes. They carry deoxygenated blood back to the heart. They have thinner walls than arteries, and they have valves to prevent backflow to ensure a smooth return journey.
Fascinating. It's like our bodies have this incredibly sophisticated transportation network. It reminds me of when we were kids, checking our pulse. What were we actually feeling back then?
You are feeling the surge of blood through your arteries with every heartbeat. It's like feeling the rhythm of the transportation system in action.
Wow, that's amazing. So our pulse is like a direct link to the powerhouse that keeps this whole system running. The heart. Speaking of the heart, it's pretty incredible how this fist-sized organ works nonstop year after year without us even having to think about it.
It truly is. But how does this incredible pump manage to do it all? Maybe we should take a closer look at the heart's design and how it functions.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to dive deeper into the heart.
All right, well, the heart's design is remarkably elegant. It has 4 chambers, 2 atria, and 2 ventricles. Think of it as a two-sided pump, with each side having an upper and a lower chamber.
Okay, 2 sides, 4 chambers. What happens in each of these chambers?
So the atria, the upper chambers, they receive blood. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body, while the left atrium receives oxygen-rich blood from the lungs.
Okay, makes sense. So what about the ventricles?
The ventricles, those are the lower chambers, so the heavy lifting, the pumping. The right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and the left ventricle pumps oxygen-rich blood to the rest of the body.
So it's like this carefully choreographed dance, with each chamber playing a very specific role in keeping the blood flowing in the right direction.
Exactly. Each heartbeat is a carefully coordinated contraction of these heart muscles, and that creates the lub-dub sound we're all familiar with.
Ah, that familiar lub-dub. It's like the soundtrack of life. But there's more to it than just the sound, right?
Right. The lub sound, that's the closing of the valves between the atria and the ventricles. And the dub sound is the closing of the valves as blood is pumped out of the ventricles.
Wow, that's amazing. It really is the sound of our circulatory system working perfectly.
It is. And this rhythmic beating is essential for maintaining circulation, for delivering those nutrients to cells, and for removing waste products.
It's mind-blowing. It makes you appreciate just how complex and incredible the human body really is. I have a question, though. We've all heard a doctor listen to our heartbeat through a stethoscope. What's actually going on there? How does that work?
The stethoscope? Oh, that's a brilliant invention. It allows doctors to hear the sounds and rhythms of your heart more clearly. And by listening to those lub-dubs and any other sounds, they can detect irregularities and diagnose potential problems.
Wow, it's like giving them superpowers to hear what's going on inside our bodies.
Oh.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the delivery of oxygen and nutrients. But what about the waste our bodies produce? What happens to all that stuff?
That's where excretion comes in. It's just as important as delivering the good stuff. We need to get rid of those waste products that build up in our bodies. If we didn't, well, things would get pretty messy and unhealthy.
Right, it's like taking out the trash.
Yeah,
Our body has its own waste removal system.
exactly. Our bodies have some very efficient ways of doing that. We've talked about carbon dioxide leaving through the lungs, but there are other waste products produced by cells that need to be removed. And these are toxic, so our bodies have specific systems to get rid of them.
Okay, so what are these systems?
Well, one of the key players are the kidneys.
The kidneys. Everyone's always talking about kidneys. What exactly do they do?
The kidneys act like filters, removing waste products from the blood and turning them into urine. They play a crucial role in maintaining the balance of fluids and electrolytes in our bodies.
So they're like the body's water treatment plants, filtering out impurities and keeping things clean. It's amazing.
It is. And from the kidneys, urine travels through tubes called ureters to the bladder, where it's stored until, well,
Yeah.
you know.
Uh-huh. Right. We've all been there. But there's another way our bodies get rid of waste, something we experience, especially on a hot day. And it's not always pleasant.
You're talking about sweating. And it's not just about cooling down. Sweat actually contains water and salts, which are waste products.
Ah, so that explains those white patches sweat can leave on clothes. It's not just water evaporating, it's those salts being excreted too.
Exactly. And it highlights the interconnectedness of these systems. Sweating helps regulate body temperature while also getting rid of waste. Pretty neat, right?
It's incredible. It's like our bodies have their own built-in air conditioning and waste removal system all in one.
Exactly. So before we move on to plant transport, let's quickly recap the key players in the human circulatory system. We have blood, the fluid that acts as a transport medium, carrying oxygen, nutrients, hormones, and waste products. Blood vessels, the pathways that blood travels through, including arteries and veins. The heart, the muscular pump that keeps the blood circulating throughout the body. And the kidneys, the filters that remove waste products from the blood and produce urine.
That's a great summary. It really helps put everything into perspective. It's amazing. It really makes you appreciate the incredible complexity and efficiency of the human body even more.
It is truly remarkable. And speaking of remarkable systems, we haven't even touched on how plants, without a heart or blood, manage to transport water and nutrients from the soil all the way to their leaves, sometimes hundreds of feet in the air.
That's a great point. How do they do it? Are you ready to dive into the world of plants?
Absolutely. Let's uncover the secrets of the silent yet incredibly efficient world of plant transportation. So plants, they may not have a bustling heart or that network of highways like our circulatory system, but they've evolved their own, ingenious methods for moving substances around.
Okay, so how do they do it?
It all comes down to a specialized tissue called vascular tissue.
Vascular tissue. Is that kind of like the plant's version of blood vessels?
You got it. There are two main types, xylem and phloem. Think of them as tiny pipelines running throughout the plant. They connect the roots to the leaves.
Okay, pipelines. I like it. So what do these pipelines, the xylem and phloem, do? What are they transporting?
All right, so xylem. Xylem is responsible for transporting water and dissolved minerals upwards from the roots.
Okay, and phloem.
Phloem, that carries the sugars produced during photosynthesis. It takes those sugars to all parts of the plant, even down to the roots.
Ah, okay, so it's a two-way street. Substances moving up and down as needed. That's pretty similar to our circulatory system, with arteries and veins carrying things in different directions.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of convergent evolution. Different organisms, they've evolved similar solutions to the same problem. In this case, transportation.
I love that, convergent evolution. It's like nature has this toolbox, and different organisms are just picking and choosing the best tools for the job, even if they're totally unrelated. But how does water actually move upwards in xylem, especially in those towering trees? It seems to defy gravity.
Right. That's where a really clever process called transpiration comes in. It's the process of water evaporating from these tiny pores on the leaves. They're called stomata. And this evaporation creates a suction force, pulls water upwards through the xylem.
Wait, so the plant is what, pulling water up from the ground using the power of evaporation?
It is. And it's amazingly efficient. It allows even the tallest trees to access water from the soil. But transpiration isn't the only force at play here. There's also something called capillary action.
Capillary action, what's that?
Have you ever noticed how water seems to climb up the sides of a narrow tube?
Yeah, I think I have.
That's capillary action. It's caused by the adhesive forces between water molecules in the walls of the tube, and also by the cohesive forces between the water molecules themselves.
So basically, the water molecules are attracted to each other into the walls of the xylem, and that's helping them move upwards. It's like they're all holding hands, pulling each other along.
Exactly. And there's another force we should mention too, root pressure.
Root pressure. What is that? Does it have something to do with the roots pushing water upwards?
You're on the right track. Root pressure is the force exerted by the roots that helps push water upwards into the xylem. It's especially important at night when transpiration is low.
So it's like the roots are giving the water a little boost to get it started on its journey upward. That's fascinating.
Mm.
It's amazing how all these forces work together to keep water flowing throughout the plant. What about phloem? How does it transport sugars from the leaves to the rest of the plant?
Phloem transport is a bit more complex. It's driven by differences in pressure between the source, where sugars are produced, usually the leaves, and the sink, where sugars are needed or stored, like fruits, roots, or growing parts of plant.
Okay, so it's like a pressure gradient, where sugar's flowing from high pressure to low pressure. But how does the plant create this pressure gradient in the first place?
It's a process called translocation, and it involves active transport. The plant actively pumps sugars into the phloem at the source, and that creates a high-pressure area. And then at the sink, sugars are actively removed from the phloem, creating a low-pressure area. So this pressure difference that drives the flow of sugars through the phloem.
Wow, so the plant is actively controlling the flow of sugars, sending them where they're needed most. That's incredible.
It is, and it highlights the amazing adaptability of plants. They can adjust the flow of sugars depending on their needs, like sending more to developing fruits, for example, or storing them in the roots for later use.
This is all so fascinating. It's like uncovering this whole hidden world within plants, a world of constant movement and exchange. It just makes me appreciate the complexity of nature even more.
Me too. And before we move on, let's quickly recap the key players in plant transport. We've got xylem, the tissue that transports water and dissolved minerals upwards from the roots. Phloem, the tissue that transports sugars produced during photosynthesis to all parts of the plant. Transpiration, the process of water evaporating from leaves, creating that suction force that pulls water upwards. Capillary action, the movement of water upwards in narrow tubes due to adhesion and cohesion. Root pressure, the force exerted by the roots that helps push water upwards. And translocation, the process of transporting sugars through the phloem driven by pressure differences between the source and the sink.
Wow, that was a lot. But a great summary. It really shows that even though plants seem static and silent, they're incredibly dynamic and efficient in how they transport substances.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? We've talked about how substances move within individual organisms, but have you ever considered how energy and matter are transported on a global scale, through ecosystems and even the entire planet?
Whoa, that's a whole other level. It's like zooming out from the microscopic level to a global perspective. Suddenly, those tiny delivery trucks of hemoglobin and the silent flow of water through xylem become part of something much grander. That's a really cool thought. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? We've been focusing on these microscopic systems, but they're all part of this much larger global system.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that everything is connected. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, it's all part of this interconnected web of life.
It really is. It's amazing. So we've explored the intricate highways and byways inside both our own bodies and in the plant world. What stands out to you as the biggest takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's the interconnectedness. It's just incredible how everything is connected. From the tiniest cells to the tallest trees, there's this constant flow of substances, this exchange of energy and matter. And that's what makes life possible.
It's true. And those transportation systems, whether it's our circulatory system or a plant's vascular tissue, they're the ones making it all happen. They're like the unsung heroes working tirelessly behind the scenes.
I like that, the unsung heroes. We definitely take these systems for granted, but without them, well, life as we know it just wouldn't exist. It's this beautiful symphony of processes happening all around us and inside us, keeping everything in balance.
It really is a beautiful symphony. So for our listeners out there, after going on this incredible journey with us today, what's the one thing we want them to remember?
That's a good question. I think the key takeaway is this. Never underestimate the power of transport. It doesn't matter if it's the intricate dance of blood cells in our bodies or the silent flow of water through a tree. These systems are the foundation of life, and they remind us that even though we may seem like separate individuals, we're all part of something much, much bigger.
Beautifully said. I love that. And next time you see a tree swaying in the wind or a bird soaring overhead or even just your own reflection, you know, take a moment to remember that amazing journey happening inside. It's like a silent symphony of transport and exchange that keeps us all going.
That's it. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world. There's always something new to discover right in front of us and within us.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible world of transportation systems. Until next time, keep learning and stay curious.